Day 945 of the Ukrainian War Map, also known as the Russo-Ukrainian War. Juzzie here, and today is another update as I take a simplified and down-to-earth approach to some of the most important happenings on the ground in Ukraine. So starting off, we'll take a look at those Russian losses, as currently Russia sits on more than 646,000 military personnel losses, representing an additional 1,250 in the past day. Then as for hardware losses, 15 tanks, 12 APVs, a whopping 74 artillery, and 73 vehicles, comprising mostly of buhanka vans, motorbikes, golf buggies. But the figure does not count e-scooters, although the mere fact that it had the opportunity to do so tends to indicate the downwards trajectory of how Russian soldiers are equipped. Then headed straight to the map, and we'll start out in Vovchansk, where a Ukrainian Liberation was being hinted at over the past few days, with the Ukrainian forces now recapturing the Vovchansk aggregate plant. Here we see some photos of the taking back of control. Now, the operation, led by Ukraine's military intelligence, was described as extremely difficult, with special forces systematically clearing all 30 buildings through intense urban combat. During this mission, several Russian soldiers were captured, while Ukrainian troops faced attacks from kamikaze drones and heavy shelling, but the aggregate plant, occupied by Russian forces since July, is now under full Ukrainian control. As a result, this victory represents a significant blow to the Russian offensive in northern Kharkiv, an offensive which had already been stalled for some months. And yet, Russia's commencement of military activities in this region, starting back in the month of May, was meant to be Russia's game changer, with the Russian MOD expecting two outcomes for this sector. Firstly, that they could use this approach to capture Kharkiv city and the rest of Kharkiv. You may even remember captured Russian soldiers previously stating that their commanders explicitly advised them that Kharkiv city was their objective. Then secondly, for these activities, the Russian MOD's expectation was that opening up a brand new front in northern Ukraine would pull Ukrainian forces away from the Donbass, Zaporizhia, and Kherson fronts. But little did they actually expect Ukraine to be building up their northern border forces ever since the Russian military retreat from the north, in fact a retreat all the way from the capital of Kyiv, after their initial full-scale invasion. Then, with what would appear to be minimal to no intelligence gathering by the Russian MOD, Russia began their Kharkiv incursion, which ultimately came to a bludgeoning halt due to Ukraine's installed defenses. On the flip side, Russia never allocated sufficient resources to their own southwestern borders, leading to the ironic twist of Ukraine performing their own much larger incursion into Russian territory. And then, speaking of Kursk, we'll head across to this bigger brother-sized incursion, where Russian borders were breached by the very country that they invaded. But to add a little bit more specificity to the most recent engagements, we'll zoom into the Western Front, where the AFU reportedly gained complete fire control of the Gloshkovo-Veseloy highway. Now, fire control of a highway, for the most part, traditionally refers to artillery fire that targets and controls key sections of the road to hinder or block enemy movements. And although that type of AFU activity does exist here, it's the ultra-modern warfare tactics that shows us the quadcopter first-person view of said targets struck on the highway, including, for example, right here with a Russian four-wheeler ATV, then to right here with a two-wheeler motorbike targeted, possibly a Russian moped that one, then a vehicle here, then another Russian tank here, then an armored vehicle, then another tank, then also quite a bit more beyond the Russian trench line that's not indicated on this particular map, although quite a bit of effort goes into geolocating these positions, meaning that there's a lot more examples that are not yet 100% verified. Oh, then also in this immediate area, we see Ukrainian forces of the 225th Separate Battalion act at former Russian airborne unit positions, specifically that of the 234th VDV Regiment, or VDV Regiment, who are generally considered to be one of Russia's elite military units, due to their combat experience, their high mobility, and their well-equipped units. However, this reputation has been met with challenges as a direct result of the Russian SMO losses. In fact, 12 months ago, a VDV spokesman appeared to accidentally let it slip on live Russian state media TV that they already lost 60% of their airborne personnel. Meanwhile, I'm just impressed by their heavy usage of Ukrainian colors on their VDV flag. Then headed down on the map into the central Donbass, into Toretsk, where Russian positions appear to remain the same as yesterday, in part due to events like these, where we saw overnight total destruction of Russian shelters by the AFU. And then in the daytime, we saw Ukrainian Special Operation Forces make use of the Norwegian Black Hornet Nano mini drone as they conducted close-quarters combat reconnaissance operations as part of their urban warfare tactics, allowing troops to safely assess threats, spot hidden enemies, or locate potential dangers inside of buildings before entering. This reduces the risk of ambushes and helps ensure safer tactical maneuvers in urban environments. What a simple yet instantly essential small piece of tech for any modern-day warfare environment. It's a platform type that the Russian army simply does not possess. Then headed slightly down on the map as the latest showed that Russian forces were put under severe Ukrainian fire today at Novorodrivka, near to Pokrovsk. Satellite images show towns and fields with severe combat-related fires, vehicles and positions, both at frontline and rear positions. Then somewhere also on this front, during an assault, a clearly undertrained Russian soldier failed to correctly throw his own grenade, leading him to be somewhat subject to the blast effects. These guys are not trained to NATO standard, not by a long shot. Then headed way down on the map as Russia is constructing a naval base in occupied Abkhazia, which Ukraine suggests could become a legitimate target. Now, as for the backstory to this location, Abkhazia is a region occupied by Russian forces and recognized internationally as part of Georgia, where this new naval base construction is occurring. President Zelensky warned that Ukraine would strike Russia's Black Sea Fleet wherever it's stationed, right as satellite images confirm progress on the base, located at Oshamshire. That's considered more of a strategic location further from Ukraine's missile range. So from a Russian standpoint, this construction makes sense because Russia's original Black Sea Fleet HQ was Sevastopol, now it's unofficially Novorossiysk, but due to Ukraine's long-range UAV and naval drone advancements, it's likely the new Russian HQ will move as far away as it can, with the occupied Georgian region being some 1,000 kilometers or 600 miles from Odessa, though it is significantly shorter at 650 kilometers or about 400 miles from the Zaporizhia front lines. So unless Russia was looking to invade and occupy northeast Turkey, then this is about as far as they can get. But still, a location which remains entirely within range of many Ukrainian weapons platforms. Then moving across to some wider activity in the east with a focus on more unique entries. So take a look at this. This is not a Ukrainian drone. Now, this footage comes from one of Ukraine's drone hunters that was called in to neutralize the threat as it came across a very well-known Russian Zala 421 recon drone sporting Ukrainian colors. Now, there's no point going down the rabbit hole of the laws of armed conflict specifically addressed in the Geneva Convention and the Hague regulations about using the enemy colors or symbols, because it's basically expected by Russia at this point. But any Ukrainian drone operator worth their salt will instantly recognize the Zala-type Russian drone that this is, which, by the way, is flying in Ukraine's direction. So it's a no-brainer, and it represents a bad loser attitude. Clearly the Russian recon drone operators know their UAVs are getting targeted now, so this is their high-tech Russian response. Fantastic. Oh, and the German Balkenkreuz symbol painted on the wing of the drone was a nice touch as well. Then headed across to a quick funny to round it all off for today, guys, with this next piece being more of an oddity than anything, as a Russian soldier in Zaporizhia from the 42nd Motorized Rifle Division was forced to set his own vehicle on fire as punishment after using it without proper orders from his commander. Now, it's starting to become quite common that Russian soldiers who get their sign-up bonus for contract military service soon realize they need to buy their own vehicles, even if it's just an electric scooter. But as for this story, I imagine this guy probably drove it a little too close in proximity to the commander's clandestine bunker, infuriating the commander, leading to this embarrassing non-professional army result. Where this guy, in all likelihood, paid extra for the camouflage green paint job for his Russian Lada vehicle. Sign-up bonus gone. So that's it for today, guys. Thanks for sticking around as we stick it to Putin, but more than that, where we put a spotlight on aggressive expansionist regimes that will look to the West's reactions and responses on Russian aggression as a template from which to serve their own foreign policy on. So as always, thanks again, and I do hope to see all of you guys there in the next one. Cheers!